Hey everyone, this is the ASUS Z-13 Flow gaming tablet. I can't tell you how much I've been waiting for a device like this. From all the way back in the early 2000s, I've been looking for a device that allows me to do graphic art, productivity work, and gaming. And that's no easy task when you're looking for a lightweight, easy to carry device. I remember purchasing the Motion tablet PC way back when and tried really hard to get Star Wars Galaxies to run on it. I think I was successful, but at lowest settings, I think I was only able to get 9 to 11 frames per second. I am currently using the Surface Pro 8, and even though it's a great device, it still doesn't allow me to do all of the things I would like to do with the computer while traveling. If you've seen some of my previous YouTube videos, I've added an eGPU to my Surface Pro 8 because it has included Thunderbolt ports. That adds some significant gaming oomph to the system. However, it's a lot to carry on trips and makes it almost impossible to use if I have to fly. The ASUS ROG Z-13 Flow changes all of this. This is the first gaming tablet with a dedicated GPU. Not only that, it also comes with a 12th generation 14-core i9 12900H processor. The system is rounded out with 16 gigs of RAM and a very bright 1920 by 1200 screen. I'm also happy to say that ASUS included a keyboard with this device, which is a departure from the typical Microsoft Surface Pro devices. ASUS, however, like Microsoft, did not include a stylus, but the stylus does use Microsoft's Pen Protocol or MPP 2.0, which allows for a large amount of stylus choices. I chose to actually repurchase my Surface Pen that I used in the past because it utilizes MPP 2.0, and it works great. Looking at the device itself, it reminds me of the older Surface Pro body type because it's a little bit boxy in nature. Weighing in at 2.5 pounds or a little bit more, it's about a half a pound heavier than traditional Surface devices out today. So a little bit thicker, but still significantly portable and able to fit in a small laptop bag. The aesthetics of the device, however, bring up a small amount of frustration. I love ASUS, and I've used their motherboards in PCs that I've built from the get-go. However, I do also understand the gaming culture, the oddly shaped vents, the RGB, and all the other design features that scream gamer. But as an older gamer, I can't help hoping that they take some design cues from manufacturers like Apple, trying to make more tasteful, sleek, and mature, powerful PCs. HP has done this with some of their laptops, and I really love an aesthetic that is more akin to a Mercedes or a BMW than a canary yellow Camaro. One screams, "Look at me," while the other one screams, "Watch me." Shout out to Razer, however, they've been making some laptops that are a little bit more subdued, yet packing some significant power. Now, with the use of Surface Pro form factor design, bringing a device with futuristic lettering and RGB window on the back, this computer makes it feel like I'm compensating for something other than being productive. The keyboard on this, though, is great to use. It has just the right amount of key travel, a satisfying sound, and a decent trackpad for the form factor. It bears a lot of similarity to the Surface line of keyboards. There is, however, a decent amount of flex felt with typing, which was an issue with last year's Surface Pros. Microsoft seems to have improved on that design with their newer models. The keyboard keys are, though, in a futuristic font, which I think overall detracts from the elegance of the device. The keyboard connects in a fashion similar to Surface devices with a magnetic connector on the bottom of the device. On the left-hand side, you have a Thunderbolt port as well as the proprietary port for ASUS's XG Mobile brand of eGPUs. This is a great addition in my opinion. Traditional GPUs that utilize desktop cards are roughly the size of a shoebox. By using higher-end laptop eGPUs, they can add a 3080, which adds significant power to run the included display at higher frame rates and better graphic quality, improving the overall experience. This doesn't come at a bargain, however, because the external GPU runs just about shy of $2,000 for the 3080. The proprietary port for the XG Mobile also houses a USB-C port for added expansion. Across the top, the device displays the Republic of Gamers logo, as well as two vents to expel hot air from the liquid cooling mechanism inside, keeping the CPU and GPU relatively low temperature while at significant use. The right side of the device has a USB-A port volume rocker, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and the power button which doubles as a fingerprint reader. As an aside, it didn't do that great of a job determining my fingerprint. Perhaps it's the size of the button or the angle of your finger when you're trying to touch it. The back of the device, although interesting, is my biggest gripe. ASUS has decided to place its vents on the back of the machine, which takes the shape of a 06. Also, they supplied a window which shows the Z-13's motherboard adorned with RGB lighting. This window sticks out further than the rest of the case and makes sitting the device flat on the table difficult. It reminds me of your phone and the camera bump that doesn't allow the phone to sit flush on the table. I think, however, this may be done by design because the vents need to well intake. The vent design is also an issue because if you flip the keyboard around to the back, you obstruct the intake vents on the system, but the system knows this and does warn you and asks you to place the device in a lower power mode for heat reduction. Perhaps the window keeping the unit from laying flat on the table is part of the design of the device for airflow. The kickstand on the device, though, is nice. It's well built, allows for 170 degrees of angulation, allowing you to place the tablet in draft mode, similar to the Surface Pro devices. The display has a 1920 by 1200 resolution panel. Now, you could order this device with a 4K display, but at 13 inches, I really feel that many of us would be wasting our money by purchasing such a high-resolution display in this type of form factor. The 3050 Ti would have a significantly difficult time trying to drive that amount of pixels compared to this lower resolution, and with the size, the lower resolution really isn't even noticed. This comes at a contrast from the Microsoft Surface line, which currently has a higher resolution on their Pro devices of 2880 by 1920. So far, I have to say that I'm really happy with this device. It has a 1TB replaceable M.2 drive and a slot for an SD card reader, a decent set of cameras, an HD camera on the front, and an 8-megapixel camera on the back. You will, however, lose the ability to use Windows Hello with these cameras. The GPU, in this case the 3050 Ti, allows me to play many games at 1920 by 1080 at playable frame rates. But how does this device stack up against the Surface Pro 8 with an eGPU attached? Now I know it's obvious that a 3060 desktop class GPU should smoke a laptop 3050 Ti, but I began thinking about the pros and cons of these two setups. On one hand, with the Surface device, you have a lighter screen with a higher resolution, it's thinner, it's lighter, and it's more professional in appearance. Adding an eGPU, you'll see a significant increase in performance, but at the cost of significant weight and portability. The Surface Pro with an eGPU will have to also render graphics on its own internal display, which is a detriment for eGPU use. Now, we could easily plug in an external monitor and solve that issue, but this video is focusing on the use case of portability, so we won't use that option for now. Also, the Surface has an older, lower voltage, lesser core CPU. The ASUS, however, it has a completely portable form factor with an internal graphics card that won't suffer any Thunderbolt data difficulties. It will run a higher power processor and can do all that in a form factor which is easy to take on the road. The question is, how big of a performance difference will we see between these two devices, and will that difference cause me to return this device to Best Buy? Today we're going to do a head-to-head test and see how the ASUS fares against the desktop-grade GPU attached to the Surface Pro 8. Looking at the ASUS Armoury Crate software included on the device, we are allowed to monitor both the CPU and the GPU temperatures. The device also will automatically switch to turbo mode when plugged in and appears to be directly related to the Windows power settings, as well as some other settings like fan control, for example. So, let's see how these two devices stack up side by side and see what the best use case scenario is for a portable gaming tablet that is not going to be your daily driver, but great for travel and able to do work on the road.
Okay, so in this tablet showdown, we're going to record a couple of different ways. We're going to use two resolutions and two different graphic settings. We'll be running 1920 by 1080 as well as 1920 by 1200, both with medium and high settings for 3 games. Let's do this. So what'd you guys think of the Deathloop data? I was actually kind of surprised to see the Z13 beat out the Surface Pro with an eGPU. I'm not sure if the code has some sort of optimization for the 3050 Ti, but it felt very responsive even in the 30s. It was very playable and I never felt like it was chugging along. Alright, so let's see what we have in store for New World. With New World, there appears to be a flip in the data. There's anywhere between a 7 to 15 frame per second increase with using the Surface Pro 8 and the attached eGPU. Both methods are relatively playable, but I would have to say that it is definitely a better experience by using the lower resolutions. Okay, let's check out Valheim. Well, similar to the last comparison, the Surface Pro 8 with the added eGPU beat out the Z-13 by a significant margin, more than New World actually, anywhere between 9 and almost 20 frames per second. However playable at lower resolutions, the Z-13 seemed to take a significant hit in FPS with increasing graphical complexity and resolution. So, to sum it up, let's take a look at the chart. In summary, we can see that for Deathloop, the Z-13 seemed to beat out the eGPU by a long shot. This flipped for both the New World as well as Valheim. So remember, this was a use case scenario for a tablet that is portable that has an internal GPU versus the Surface Pro 8 with an external GPU. Sure, the external GPU seemed to beat out most of the tests over the Z-13, but the Z-13 is still pretty playable at 1080 resolution on medium settings. Definitely a win for portability. And finally, let's look at Cinebench benchmarks as well as PC Mark and 3D Mark.
So, as you can see, the ASUS Z-13 didn't fare as well against the Surface Pro 8 with an attached 3060 Ti eGPU. I guess I expected this, but the surprise is that the Z-13 actually beat out the Surface Pro 8 with Deathloop. And with that, the Z-13 was actually very playable. I know that 30 to 40 frames per second certainly isn't optimal, but to have an ultra-portable device that can do productivity, art, as well as run games, that's a win to me, as well as a first for this type of form factor. I couldn't even get Deathloop to start on my Surface without an attached GPU. I personally have been running games at lower resolutions than 1920 by 1080 and able to get frame rates in the 50 to 60s on most titles. That seems to be the sweet spot for me. And from the examples given on the video for these different games, please understand that the time frame playing these games was actually longer than shown, so the average was actually taking from a much longer time of playing the game. Also, both of these PCs were plugged into power and running at the highest power settings. Interestingly enough, even though the Z-13 was running at turbo power settings, the GPU stayed relatively cool. I'm curious to know if there's actually some overclocking ability to this device, being that the temperatures were so good. After significant use, the GPU temps stayed at 60 to 61 degrees Celsius. There's a user on Reddit by the name of evensisis who was able to undervolt the 3050 Ti in the Z-13 Flow. They utilized MSI Afterburner and unlocked the voltage control and got a stable system when they pushed their core clocks to 200 MHz and their memory clock to 500 MHz. They stated that they got about a 5 to 6% increase in performance on the card. I'll link the Reddit post below, but please overclock with caution. Doing so may destroy your computer and certainly void your warranty. So in conclusion, I have to say I certainly recommend the ASUS Z-13. If you're expecting to have a battle station gaming rig, you might be disappointed. But with my use case, I was looking for portability and specs that will get the job done when I'm on some short trips. The pen functionality works great, it's lightweight, manages temps well, great screen, bright screen color, and a nice keyboard. All that in just a little over 2.5 pounds. However, don't forget about the XG Mobile expansion, where you can add a much higher performance GPU. And then maybe you can make a battle station rig out of this system. You do have a great processor, certainly enough RAM, and a kick-ass video card. Plug in a monitor and other peripherals and you're good to go. ASUS certainly has one-upped Microsoft in the tablet market. I highly recommend this device, and I hope this video was helpful to you. Please stay tuned for more videos on my channel. And please, check out themodernboomer.com for more information on the adult gaming community. Follow me on social media, ed.gamer, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Till next time, guys, have a good one. And I'll make sure I try to answer some questions below, so let me know what you want to hear, and I'll try to get you good answers. And as a bonus, check out this video of Escape from Tarkov. Bye-bye, everybody.